Mr Chair.
Chris Farfoy.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair, for the opportunity to speak to Part 2 of this Credit Contracts and Financial Services Law Reform Bill. Can I thank the Minister for making a substantial contribution to the debate. But can I also take this opportunity, because I didn't get the chance in Part 1, to thank the officials who are in the House tonight. This, as the Minister said, was... I'll get to you soon. Don't worry, you get your day in the sun. To thank the officials who helped us with this bill, because as the Minister did say, it is a complex bill, but it is a bill that deals with the nitty-gritty of what a lot of our constituents face in our communities when they're dealing with the likes of second and third tier lenders. So to you, thank you very much, because I think we have made some substantial changes which will help many people in the communities right around New Zealand. So thank you, because you made it into plain English for those who didn't understand the legalese of it. To also, here you go, Jonathan. To the other members of the Select Committee, there were a few points of difference around interest rate caps, which I'll get to in my contribution. But on the whole, the length of time that we spent on this bill and the way and nature in which we worked in the Select Committee on the bill meant that we've got a bill that we will support. We do have some concerns about the length of time that it took to get here and some things that have been omitted from the bill, but on the whole, it is a good piece of legislation that we will support and will make difference to people's lives. The Minister and the Chair did mention the Commerce Commission, and certainly during the submissions in Auckland we did sense some frustration that the Commerce Commission wasn't doing enough at the business end of the formation of credit contracts, policing what was going on there. Certainly I think the Bankers Association in their submission I sensed a level of frustration that the Commerce Commission was seen to be not doing enough to keep an eye on what was some of the behaviour of certainly the third tier lenders who were giving the whole industry a pretty bad name. And I do acknowledge that the Minister said that the Commerce Commission has taken on one employee from Mangere to assist in the understanding of what's going on at the grassroots level in the communities, but I would suggest that that is far from enough. And maybe if the Minister could let us know, seeing he's told us what's happened so far, if there are any more plans for the Commerce Commission to extend well beyond Auckland, because this is not just an Auckland issue. It needs to be spread out right throughout the country and resourced properly, because this is a big issue and there are two very important E's that need to be considered here. The first one being education, so that everyone knows exactly what's happening in this bill and the rights that it gives to consumers. And we need to make sure there's actual enforcement. There's no use us passing this law if no one's going to police what's going on with our second and third tier lenders. And I hope that the Minister would like to get back up on his feet and certainly suggest if there is a plan for the Commerce Commission to go beyond just the one person that they have employed there, and also to employ people right around the country, basically to have enough resource to make sure that what we have done in this piece of legislation is effective. Because as he pointed out, just with the financial disputes resolution system, there isn't enough awareness of what you can do if you think you've been ripped off. And certainly we would want to make sure that there's enough education and enforcement out there so this piece of legislation will be effective. It's good to put it in law, but it's another thing to make sure that there's effective legislation so the families that we're worried about, because that's what this piece of legislation is there to help, those vulnerable families who don't have that information and that knowledge of those avenues to go down, can make sure they can get the help that they need. My colleague Carol Beaumont pointed to clause 100 in the bill, which I think is a good one and carries on a theme with the Commerce Commission, because if through a number of complaints the dispute resolution scheme sees a trend with a particular type of borrower, and I want to use the example of truck shops who certainly kind of go about their way, guerrilla tactics in my area of Mana. If they are out there trading in a way that is against what we've passed here, and the dispute resolution scheme notices that trend, it is able to pass those issues on to the Commerce Commission, and I think that is a good thing. But again, We need to make sure the Commerce Commission moves away from the Mr. Chair?
Chris Farfoy.
Moves away from the high-level thinking that, and enforcement that it has done at the moment, and actually gets down to the nitty-gritty of what's actually happening in the communities. Because I don't think the likes of the budget support organisations in our communities have the support from the Commerce Commission to be able to enforce what we're passing here today. And I think certainly the likes of the Parirua Budget Services and the Gape Budget Services, we've all got budget services in our communities. Those people at the grassroots who are helping these families day to day would certainly want to know that they've got support from the Commerce Commission to be able to put the kind of powers and the advantages they get from Clause 100 in this bill into practice, to make sure that if they do see a trend developing with a particular type of trader, of borrower, that they certainly crack down on that. And the kind of instance that I'm talking about with the truck shops is the kind of what I would call dodgy behaviour, where we have customers incurring a debt, a credit of around $1,000. And the customer pays it off, and instead of saying your bill is paid, they say, well, you've got another $1,000. Go for it. And that kind of behaviour, Mr. Chair, I think is encouraging people into even more debt. And I would hope that through the code that we've got in this legislation, we'll see much more responsible behaviour from the likes of those truck shops. Because I certainly know it hasn't been responsible to date. That kind of behaviour is off. You have these people who are working their guts out. Yes, they got themselves into debt, but they're working their guts out to make sure they can pay it off. And the message they get back from the truck shop is, well, you can spend up again because you've got $1,000 because you're back to zero. I don't think that kind of behaviour is on. Hopefully that's the kind of thing that we'll certainly see the Commerce Commission cracking down on more if, as the Minister says, they're putting more resource and focus on dealing with grassroots issues that pertain to this bill. My colleague, Carol Beaumont, also talked about Clause 72, because in Part 2 we're dealing with amendments to the Financial Service Providers Act. And Clause 72 inserts a new section into the purpose of that bill, which, if I can take the opportunity to read, to promote the confident and informed participation of businesses, investors and consumers in the financial markets, and to promote and facilitate the development of fair, efficient and transparent financial markets. So basically marrying up the FSP purposes of that bill with the bill that we're dealing with tonight. And one of the disappointments, I think, with Part 1 of the bill, now that we've got that bill and this bill married up, is that we haven't been able to pass Carol Beaumont's SOP in terms of interest rate caps. I think that SOP would have made a huge difference and sent a message to those third-tier lenders that they cannot get away with offering those ridiculous, exorbitant interest rate caps. And the fact that this House had the opportunity to do that, and I know there are arguments across in the House, but I think we have missed an opportunity to send a message to those vulnerable families that it's not okay to charge 100, 200, 700% interest on loans. That is just outrageous, and we needed to take, as a House, to take steps to make sure we stop that kind of behaviour. And Mr. Chair, that was a missed opportunity. There was a degree of bipartisanship around this bill, but I think, in a political way, that side of the House missed an opportunity to help those vulnerable families who are getting absolutely ripped off by those sharks in our community. It was something simple. It was something simple. It was something that would have just capped the interest rate, but Mr. Chair, that side of the House, and unfortunately Peter Dunn, who said he'd support such a move 3 years ago, decided not to support that, and that is a disappointment. And maybe in this part of the debate, the Minister and the Chair could explain as to why that was not taken up. But Part 2 does deal with those dispute resolution schemes. On the whole, they are good changes. As the Minister said, we're preventing overseas organisations coming over here and joining this to take the good name of our dispute resolution schemes around the world and making and trading on that. I also think that it is a good change. But to make sure this extends out the dispute resolution scheme for everyone is a good thing. But again, Mr. Chair, I would hope that the government would back it up with resources and education and enforcement to make sure that this piece of legislation isn't just something that's going to hold the door back, but is it going to be effective?
Claire Curran.
Chair, thank you very much.